The Nowhere, an ethereal expanse of questionable origin, a realm where nightmares are given life by whatever phobias haunt our sleeping subconscious minds. But I'm curious, children, when asked to imagine your greatest fear, what would you say? You might conjure images of hideous monsters, unsettling environments which surround you with any number of visual unpleasantries, a writhing nest of spiders, the unforgiving jaws of a great white shark, or the dark, sunken eyes of the looming man peering in through your bedroom window. But if you were born blind, would you share the sense of unease that these images provoke? Or would your other senses inspire you to create nightmares of another nature? Let me ask you, what's more frightening? The things that you can see, or the things that you can't? So close your eyes, little ones, and let's explore that very question in Chapter 5, Blind Panic. But first, the obligatory spoiler warning. This video will of course contain spoilers for Little Nightmares 1, 2, and maybe 3. Not to mention episodes 1 through 4 of my speculative D.L.C series, which if you haven't already seen, I suggest you check out before watching this video. But for now, like the other videos in this series, let's get into this story by selecting our next D.L.C character, which is predictably the Toddler. Unlike the other videos in this series, we ran into a couple of discrepancies while exploring this character's canonicity. While he does feature prominently in the Little Nightmares 2 digital comic, Episode 2, he does not have an existing character model in the game files, nor can we find any portrait of him hidden throughout the Nowhere. Now, there are several complications that come with bringing this character to life, at least from a game development standpoint. And the lack of our tiny tearaway's presence in the final game does indicate that this character was likely never intended to be developed into a playable one. However, I believe that with what limited lore the Toddler has at his disposal, and a little tweaking of the game mechanics, we could have ourselves an interesting adventure that will force us to adapt our playstyle to negotiate new challenges. And so with that being said, we open with an obscure and unusual scene. An unusually dark area, which has us immediately in control of our character. This time, however, with a prompt. Push Y to whistle. Doing so will trigger a mechanic abandoned in the original Little Nightmares game and adapted as a communication tool in its prequel. Upon doing this, the Toddler will let out a soft whistle, causing the area around us to become visible to a limited degree. As the tutorial continues, we recognise that the Toddler will not sprint quite as fast as our usual characters, nor will he possess the ability to slide. His jumps are lower, and his climbing is, well, embarrassing. However, his use of echolocation to illuminate his surroundings will also serve to highlight potential traps, hiding spots, and even approaching dangers. Speaking of, navigating the first area successfully will see us clamber our way into an underground tunnel, which will stir an unsettling scratching sound from within, growing more and more as we move forwards, reaching a crescendo as we're about to reach the light at the end of the tunnel and see our blindfolded hero being pulled into the earthy abyss by the many writhing claws of unidentified forest beasties. Which concludes our tutorial and finds us waking up, completely unharmed but still inside a tunnel. Our character wakes and grabs for his bindle before rapidly scurrying from the tunnel, the unnerving dream understandably having him feeling more than a little claustrophobic. We push through the tree roots at the entrance and will need to use our whistling mechanic again to illuminate our next obstacle, which is thankfully another straightforward area with a series of simple puzzles. Puzzles which we are encouraged to manage more quickly as a distant but horrifying sound bellows through the trees. avoiding some more haphazardly placed bear traps, negotiating a broken rope ladder, and make our way through the wilderness in a familiar yet unexplored location. As we enter the next area, we find a seemingly dead end, a trap placed by a hill, a wooden crate propped up by a stick, and some food underneath. A crow pecks at the fleshy morsel beneath the box, and though not normally threatening, its movements and aggressive sounds make it clear that if disturbed, this creature may well become a threat to our exceptionally small and vulnerable visitor. So we creep closer, tiptoeing quietly towards the latch and interacting with it, pulling away the stick and causing the box to collapse over the crow, resulting in it launching into a cacophony of angry noises. The act of doing so, however, now gives us a platform with which to reach the higher ledge and make our way up, resulting in our first achievement. The next area is aesthetically the same, not changing much from the seemingly endless expanse of moonlit woodland that we've been surrounded by since beginning our journey. But as the area seems to darken once again, probing us to use our echolocation once more, a large crunch from the surrounding trees clears a path, highlighting the toddler's senses and causing us to crouch behind a large slab. One perhaps familiar to purveyors of the art book, as it seems to have fallen onto a rather unfortunate and hungry traveller. But the falling slab is not what made the racket, which is made apparent to us while hiding, as a massive, lumbering shape comes trundling into frame just beyond the tree line. An enormous moose, crashing slowly through the trees, its grotesque body seeming to weep with a sticky, mossy substance as though it just crawled from a festering swamp, emitting deep, hollow groans with each movement and giving us a better understanding of our surroundings, its noisy departure revealing the position of a curious well. A well which will darken out of sight as the monstrous moose grows more distant, prompting us to whistle again, to relocate the mysterious well, which we will find seems to emit a whistle back at us when we do so. An echo? Maybe. Climbing clumsily onto the rim and hopping into the bucket, the mechanism will have us slowly descend into the darkness of the well, the narrow descent leaving us dangling a few feet from an unexpectedly cavernous new location. A location which is highlighted quite simply by using our whistling mechanic. A whistle that is once again reciprocated from deeper inside the recesses of the well. We hop out of the bucket and explore this new area, moving along the ground where we find the walls to look like they were intentionally carved into an underground cave system, the floor having a very small stream of water passing beneath our little feet as we walk forwards, whistling as we enter the new screen. This time, however, we notice something else. Not a trap or an obstacle, but a movement. A dark shape clambers just out of sight, awkwardly scrambling away from the sound we make, distracting us for almost long enough to miss our small whistle being echoed back at us from deeper inside the well. Whoever's calling us, we are getting closer. Moving anxiously forwards, we waddle through the open plan area, noticing that there are bones, fragments of animal carcasses, and an unsettling amount of discarded clothes, torn and scattered among the damp, muddy cavern floor. As we progress, still hesitant and slow-moving, we find the area opens out into a more expansive cavern, again littered with debris from rudimentary traps and mangled cages, most of which is visible due to the constant dripping coming from above, the echo of the water in the silent expanse ricocheting off the walls and shedding light on the space. That is, save for one dark corner. A discomfort descends on us as we recognise that we will have to climb the progressively inclined flooring and pass this uninviting shroud in order to progress. Though this time, our reverberating tone does little to penetrate the stifling darkness in the corner. That is, until it whistles back. A pitch-perfect copy of our own call rattles back to us, though much louder and more commanding, the sound waves bouncing off the surrounding walls and giving us our first clear look at the Mimic. Lanky and looming, he slowly descends from the ceiling, his mouth peeling open in a practiced, unsettling motion as the muscles around his throat warp and contract, and he emits a grotesque and more predatory screech. He moves sporadically, his movements awkward and damaged as he falls down the hill towards his latest prey, twisting and sprawling in a disturbed and desperate crawl as we turn on our heels and rush away to the previous cavern. We take shelter inside one of the cages as the limping horror staggers into the room, tumbling towards us but slowing as he scans the room, having lost sight of us. He makes his way by, giving us a window of opportunity. Crawling out of the cage and quietly heading back the way we came, we managed to give him the slip. However, moving through the cavern he's just vacated and moving slowly and quietly leaves us once again surrounded by darkness. We move through the next room, the Mimic's whistle echoing from the previous cavern as we blindly negotiate our surroundings. Successfully navigating our way to the next area will give us our second achievement. In the next area, we seem limited. Feeling around the room will have us soon realise that this is a dead end, a dark and sorry corner that leaves us with only one option. We let out a whistle that echoes up the cavern walls, revealing that we are at the foot of a deep chasm, a fissure in the woods, with nothing around us but a solitary cage. As soon as this area is illuminated, it becomes apparent what we need to do, as two things will happen at the same time. A hideous roar will thunder through the cavern as our whistle alerts the Mimic to our location, and the cage, attached to a rope, will start moving. Recognizing that staying still will result in certain death, we climb awkwardly into the cage as it rises, seeking refuge inside the cage for better or worse as the Mimic starts to scale the walls of the cavern, his injured legs seeming to thankfully hinder his progress as he swipes at the cage as we're pulled higher and higher, his clawed hands striking and batting at the cage, tearing away some of the bars, eventually coming to the top of the fissure and right into the arms of the hunter, who quickly leaps to one side with the cage in hand as the Mimic makes one last desperate jump, grasping the centre of the fragile wooden bridge. His scrambling weight compromises the structural integrity of the bridge, causing it to collapse in the centre, leaving it how our heroes find it later in the main game, as the Mimic plunges back into the cavern below, his last scream being swallowed by the fissure, and the screen fades to black. We awaken, once again shrouded by darkness. Letting out a weak and defeated whistle and feeling around his surroundings, the toddler finds himself still trapped within the confines of the hunter's crushed and damaged cage. Pushing on the rusty, fractured bars will have them snap, sending our sightless victim tumbling unceremoniously to the ground below. Picking up our bindle, we're offered only momentary control, padding out of the hunter's storage room and towards the back of his dilapidated cabin, where we find everything very much the same as we expect, save for a soft glow and a distant, static hum. The final cutscene plays out as you might predict. Moving curiously towards the alluring sound, a voice from within beckoning our oblivious orphan into the stream of monochromatic cathode rays being emitted from the hunter's last television. Peeling up his blindfold for the briefest of seconds before being pulled into the screen, before the screen fades and our final achievement accompanies the rolling credits. And that, my friends, concludes Chapter 5 of our speculative D.L.C. This one might have seemed a little bit shorter, but it was because I was exploring new mechanics. I didn't want to stray too far away from the developer's original plan, and this character did present us with a couple of difficulties. It was, however, a lot of fun to expand on a creature who we only heard and did not see. But as always, I would absolutely love to know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'm sorry that this one took so long to produce. We've had a couple of in-house difficulties at home, none of which I'm going to discover here. I just hope that you enjoyed the episode. If you did, be sure to let me know by using the thumb buttons down below, preferably the upward facing one. And of course, don't forget to subscribe with notifications turned on so that you don't miss the next one, because we are already working on episode 6. So thank you all so much for watching. But until next time, little ones, that's game over. Bye.